The Prince and the Poor. There was a very poor little boy named Tom Canty. This boy lives with his family in a cramped room that barely accommodates them. His father was a thief. Therefore, Tom also learned to fly as he had to provide food and drink for himself and his family. And there was a kind and loving man named Andrew. He lives with this poor family. This man has been keen on teaching Tom to read and write since he was a child. He also tried a lot to instill in her values and principles. Until he raises a decent young man. And Andrew used to tell Tom every night before he fell asleep. Tales of kings and princes. Until you learn Tom. He knew all about the lives of princes and kings, which made him wish he could become a prince like them. He lives a luxurious life in a luxurious mansion. He was always around the royal palace, wishing he could come in and live there, even for a day. One day, one of the palace guards saw him. Then he started beating him hard and hard on his face and body. The prince was at this moment seated on the balcony of his room. Look what happened. So hurry up for the soldier. And ordered him to invite Tom into the palace. This Prince Edward was interested to hear about Tom's life story, which brought him to this point. And Tim told the prince about his life and the difficulties he faced. The strange thing was that the prince had said to him, "I wish I could do the things you do." Tom couldn't believe his ears and said to himself, "Why would a prince want to live the life of a poor boy like me?" And there came an idea in the mind of the prince. It is to exchange places and clothes. And so Tom stays in the palace like a prince, while the prince goes to Tom's. He lives like a poor boy. In fact, they both swapped clothes. Tom was very excited about this idea, who realized all his dreams in an instant. On the next day, the prince went to Tom and school. There he tells the children that he is the prince. However, they laughed at him and said to him, "You're just a poor child." Then they threw him into the river. Edward walked out sad, feeling overwhelmed, humiliated and alone. Edward came back to Tom's house and tell John and Andrew he's the prince. But no one believed him. And so Andrew continued this miserable life. And one day he took. Andrew threatens John that if he doesn't stop stealing, will be reported. So Andrew hit John hard and hard until he killed him. And here John and Edward had to escape. However, Edward wanted to return to his life and his palace. Suddenly the news came to them that the king had died. Edward was now king, but no one believed him. So Tom lived in the palace for several days as king. Ministers and advisors came. They tell him he must be ready for the royal coronation. But Tom didn't want all that. He was afraid of responsibility and the pressure that was on him from everyone around him. All he wanted was to play by the river. Tom began to say to himself, "My clothes are beautiful. The food is excellent. But I want to go home. I don't want to be king." Edward ran away from John. And he went to the palace. And there he started screaming and saying he was the king. And when no one believed him, he told everyone, "I can prove to you the truth of my words. I can tell you where the king's seal is. You'll find it behind my bedroom mirror. Where you put it there." And indeed, when the guards searched for the seal, found in the same place, and they were assured that he was the king. And the two boys got their lives back. Edward was crowned king of the kingdom. He was a righteous king who helped the poor and needy. Because he lived their life, he knew the extent of their suffering and the difficulty of their days. And he always invited Tom to stay with him in the palace. Thus, the two boys became good friends. And they lived happy and happy. And when Tom grew up, he decided to write his story, which he called The Prince and the Pauper.